Hello, I'm Nobby Clark. Welcome to my workshop. Very cold workshop today, so in the background you might hear my fan heater going just to keep me a little bit warmer. I'm making this video in response to a video put out by Paul of the Knackler's Workshop, where he showed a new tool in his workshop, which he said is something he'd been looking for about a year and a half. It was a very nice Arbour press. I contacted Paul and said that I bought a very small Arbour press quite some years ago, and as he was saying in his video about what other things he could do with the press, and was looking for a few suggestions, so I said to him that I could make a video for everyone really, but for Paul to look at as well, with some of the things that you could actually do with an Arbour press. So this is the Arbour press in question. I actually bought this it's probably about 7 years ago now. When I bought my Chinese mini lathe, I bought it from, it was a sort of an estate sale, if you like. I bought it from the son of the man that owned the mini lathe, and when I went to collect it, he said, well, look around the workshop if there's anything else that you could see that would go with the lathe, just pick it up and take it with you. But while I was there, I noticed in his late father's garage that there was this Arbour press sort of almost hanging off a bench at the back of the garage. I said to him, did he want to sell this as well? He said, well, yeah, he hadn't actually advertised this. He'd advertised, I think, mainly most of the large items in the workshop, and I gather there's likelihood that a lot of the other things that were left over possibly would have just been thrown away. So I said I'd be interested in this, and I made him an offer for it, which rather a cheeky offer, but he accepted it and said, well, if you're taking that, you better have this as well. And he produced them a little tiny little toolbox with all of these other items in it as well, which could be used with the press. What I'll do is I'll bring the camera in a bit closer so I can show you the press in more detail and all the items that I got with it. So bear with me just a moment. Well, this is the press itself, a slightly better view of it. I mounted this just onto a piece of scrap wood so that I can clamp it onto the bench, because obviously when you're putting any pressure on this, it's likely to pull the press forward. So I've clamped it from the back so that it will hold it actually in solid position on the bench itself. I'll just put this little bit of wood under here to keep the ram up in position. It does have a hole here which goes right the way through. This is probably just, well, I guess mainly to clear any bits that fall through here, and you'll see why in a moment. There's also a locking screw in the side here. No instructions with it, so I've had to sort of guess what some of the things do. This may have been to lock another tool in position here, but this could obviously be mounted over the edge of a bench, so anything that, if this is being used, you'll see as a punch, bits could fall all the way through. The one that Paul has, it is very much taller, so I guess the one he had could be used as a means of cutting keyways as well. I think the height of here obviously is not going to be long enough to use a broach to cut keyways. I mean, all the broaches I've seen are actually quite long, so I don't think there really would be enough clearance, unless there are broaches which are much smaller. I don't know. This particular press was originally sold by RS. This is RS Components, who sell, or used to sell lots of electronic parts, but they do also do, from looking at their website yesterday, they do a lot of workshop tools as well. When I got this, I did look on the RS website. Then there is actually a part number there's a badge on the side here, giving the stock code for it, and it was actually still available then. But when I looked at it yesterday, this doesn't appear anymore. The Arbour presses they have are all much larger, very, very similar to the one that Paul has. But the gentleman who owned this, I'm assuming he bought this for very specific purposes. Going by some of the tools here, if I just move the camera around a little bit here, have to confess, the only tool I've used on this is this one. This is the base part, and this can be attached here to, you see there's 4 screw holes in here. This can be attached onto the base of the Arbour press, and then you can use the Arbour press as like a sort of a mini brake. It has these parts which obviously fit into here, and that will give you or up to a 45 degree or sort of 90 degree bend in a piece of material. And along with it there were a series of other brakes of different widths. This one's a little bit dirty because I hadn't actually cleaned this one up. All of these I did clean up. So you've got different sizes, one which covers virtually the whole width of the slot here, down to small ones. So it's like a sort of a mini finger brake, I guess. This part obviously is attached up into the bottom of the quill and locked in place, so that can be then brought down into the slot here with a piece of metal in here, and you can bend shapes into it, as I say, up to 90 degrees. That's the only thing that so far I've ever used on this, and it works incredibly well. Reading many years back the specification of this, you can enforce up to about just over 1.5 tons of pressure on this. I think the one that Paul has, it's about 3 tons, but it is very much bigger than this one here. Now there are a lot of other tools that came with it. I'm just having to get to the other side of the camera so I can show you. Let me just tilt this forward, give you a slightly better view of these items. Now the other items that I assume when you buy the Arbour press itself, you then add to it all the various additional tools that you need. The listing for this RS Arbour press just shows the unit on its own, and then it lists all these other accessories you can buy. Now obviously a lot of these are actually punches. This one will punch out, as you see here, an oblong shaped hole, and there's a cutter that inserts into it, and that have actually tested this, and that's what it will produce. It punches these out. Obviously I'm guessing there's a bit of a technique to doing this, because what I found was that when I punched these holes through it, this bit of metal tended to get stuck onto this part. There is actually a sort of a little lip all the way, I don't know if you can see it, a little lip all the way round here, but with a bit of jiggling around, and obviously I managed to make it release. But perhaps this is a bit of a technique to learn. So that worked perfectly. That's sort of one option, but I guess the gentleman that owned this bought sort of various shapes to suit whatever he was making. So this could either punch, as I say, the oblong hole, but I did notice on some of the bits of metal that were in the workshop that along the edge of some of the bits of metal there were little shapes chopped out of the side. So I guess if you adjusted the position of this over the hole, you could chop out little notches along the side. So you could do an oblong hole, or just chop out a small shape at the side. So that's one item. The other punch is this one's much bigger, much heavier base, but this one punches out, I don't know what you would call that shape. The shape must be made for a specific purpose, and that's the cutter itself, and it does have a couple of little locating dowels on the side there as well that will, that way around, that will drop into the hole. So just positioning your bit of metal under here, and then that will chop the that shape out, and that's the shape it gives you. So obviously whatever he was manufacturing in his workshop, that's the shape he required. And these are obviously, both these things are fitted in with Allen cap head bolts. The same for the other one. I only got two there because I only had two longer ones in my stock. The other item that it has is this, which is I guess you would call this a shear. This again attaches to the base, this into the base of the ram, and that will then cut into that slot. And all I've done with this, I did have a practice with it, just as sort of chopping bits off the end of this piece of aluminium plate. But I think what this will also do is that if you insert a piece of metal into here, you could actually, by raising this up and down, cut through a long piece of sheet metal. I don't know whether I'm right, but I get the feeling that's possibly what this will also do, because otherwise you would be very much limited to the width of the blade here itself would be the maximum you could cut off. So I haven't practiced with this, but I'm hoping that's what it may do, enable you to cut a piece off a much larger, wider sheet of material. So I've tested out all of these items, all of which work fine. There were actually two of these bases which do look, well, they look much the same, but I could only I only found in the box one of these blades. But looking at RS's website, it didn't appear that they do any of this anymore, so you wouldn't be able to, I assume, wouldn't be able to buy additional tools for it. But I guess that, if you have the ability, you've got the option of making various tools for sort of die cutting and whatever. So the thing is obviously very, very versatile in what it will do. I think its use for me probably would be to use as a bending brake. I did make a base for a little steam engine I made. When I made the base for it, I had to sort of bend all the sides on the base around, but I'd completely forgotten about this Arbour press's capabilities of using as a brake. Then it wasn't until I started making the base for the boiler that I remembered I had this, and I was able to use this to bend the various shapes on the metal there. What I'm going to do, I'm going to just switch the camera for a moment. I'm going to fit one of the tools to the Arbour press. I won't keep the camera rolling while I'm doing that because it's going to take me a little while to do it, and I'm sure you don't really need to see me doing that, but if I can set that up, I can actually sort of demonstrate how that works. Obviously the Arbour press came with a, if I get this all in frame, came with a handle which obviously attaches into here to enable you to get enough leverage on it to give it the amount of pressure that's required. So bear with me for a moment and I'll attach, but it's going to be, I'm going to attach this thing to it to show you just sort of a bend in a bit of material. Now to set this up, I found that the easiest way of doing it is obviously mounting the base part on. I've only used 2 screws this time just to sort of make it a little bit quicker. That's going to hold it adequately in place. And I found the best way to do it was to set it up, put the press part on, and then drop the base of the Arbour, which obviously has the hole in it, over this little spigot to get everything lined up first, then clamp down the base part here, and then lock the top press part in position. A little grub screw in the side of here to enable you to do that, so that will then come down squarely into the slot here. Putting a piece of material in to bend it, I mean obviously this would have been marked out in exactly the position you want it. Well, not bothered in this instance, just for the demonstration, but that could then be lined up with the sharp edge here. That could be sort of lined up on the material that will sort of hold it in place, and then we put the, if I can get this into position first, I can get enough pressure on this, put the arm in, that can be then brought down into position. Let's see if I've got enough room to do this. I think I have. And then there's your bend. I think actually I ideally need this to be in a different hole position here, so I can get the full movement, but that will bring it in. I think that's the maximum it's going to give me. Let's take the arm out. And there's the bend. So you know it does work very well indeed. And obviously, if you were making, I guess, if this was being made as a box, you can use the different size fingers in relation to the size of the box shape you're making. The end's very small. You've got a much smaller one here, so you've got a choice of different sizes of the fingers you can use. So that's sort of, you know, one sort of possible use of the device. I'll just put my little block of wood in here. So I mean, that's, as I mentioned, that's the only accessory I've used with this. I mean, so far it's the only thing I've really needed. I mean, the chance of me ever needing to cut holes in a piece of material like this in exactly the sizes that these tools have, I suppose would be the lucky chance, really, unless I can use this for some other feature or function. I don't know, but this particular thing is probably more use to me than anything else, other than using the shear capabilities of this as well. Now the ram on this one, as you can see, is round. On the one that Paul of Knackler's Workshop has, if I remember rightly, this is square, and I don't know if there's a hole underneath here or not. I've no idea. But obviously the other use for this would be pressing metal into another metal shape, or pressing bearings into position. In those instances you could have on the base here a flat plate, and then putting a piece of metal underneath the ram to press a bearing into position. I mean, I have pressed bearings into material before, but so far I've found I could do it with my bench vise. That the things have never been big enough that the bench vise wouldn't cope with it, and the opening here is probably similar to what my bench vise has anyway. What I'll do is I'll switch the camera off again, and I'll put one of the other accessories on and see if I can show that in operation as well. But I've put the base in here with the shear cutter in position, and I did it exactly the same way, mounting this on with the cutter already in the slot, and then locking the spigot itself onto the ram. Just hold that out the way. Well, I mentioned using this as a press as well. Actually, the base of this piece with the V slot obviously has got a flat base, so if you needed a piece of sort of heavy metal to put something on to press a bearing in or whatever, that could obviously be placed on there, I guess. So you've got a nice flat surface to work on. Right, let's see if I can get the shear part to work as well. One thing also on the on this plate, this side of it can be clamped in. When I tested this was clamped in tight, but I did find that the blade was binding against it, so I slackened that off slightly, which seemed to sort of help it work. There's little screws on the back here that hold that in place. But as I say, whether this is the correct way to use it, I'm not absolutely sure, because as I mentioned, I didn't get any instructions with this on how it's supposed to work. But anyway, let's see how we get on. So we'll put a piece of metal in here and see whether I can successfully cut through it or not. There we are, cuts through like a hot knife through butter. Just pop that up out of the way so I don't bring it down on my fingers, and there we are. So that's sheared a piece off the back there, and it gives you a very, very nice clean cut as well. So I mean, if you only were needing to trim fairly small pieces of metal, that would work extremely well. but there's a possibility also that that this blade could be gradually brought down on a much wider piece of sheet metal, and the blade brought across. I'm obviously only cutting aluminium, thin aluminium here. I don't know, well, I'm sure it would cut fairly thin pieces of brass as well, and possibly thin pieces of steel. So I've no idea what sort of gauge of material this could actually work up to. But there we are. I mean, it's quite obviously quite a lot of possibilities for this as well. And we knew when I checked the price of this, I can't actually remember exactly what the price of this was originally, but it was either £160 or £260. I'm not absolutely sure. Well, that was for the bare unit without any of the accessories. But I got this for a mere pittance, really. I think the guy was just happy to get rid of all the odd items that were in the garage. You know, whether he needed to get the garage cleared very, very quickly, I don't know. But he obviously had no interest in anything in the garage himself, and I may have been under some time constraint to get the garage emptied. But I have to confess that as I got this about 7 years ago, it sat on the top of a cupboard in my workshop for almost that long before I ever actually used this. When I brought this home, well, you can see it's not in a very good state. This was the state almost that it was in when I got it. But the actual operation of the RAM had completely seized up. So at that point I did completely dismantle it, clean it all up and oil it, and got it all working properly. A lot of these accessories were particularly, well, these fingers. This one you can still see has got a lot of rust on it. I didn't obviously get round to cleaning this one at the time. All of the other ones were in exactly the same condition. And what I did to clean these is I just soaked these overnight in vinegar, in distilled white vinegar, to get all the rust off, and then just gave them a scrub up with a piece of Scotch-Brite just to clean them up, and then just sort of oiled them over to keep them all, well, they've remained reasonably rust-free since, but they've all been in a box in the workshop. This one I also cleaned up. Actually, they've all got the part numbers on here as well. This one I hadn't really cleaned up much. It's not in bad condition. The other day I just sprayed this over with WD-40, gave it a bit of a wipe over, and then sprayed it with oil. And it sort of looks all right. Probably could do with a little bit more cleaning up than I've given it, but perhaps given time I'll get round to sort of cleaning all these bits and pieces up. But I hope that's been of some interest to you. I mean, I hope also that may give Paul at Knackler's Workshop some ideas on what you could also use the Arbour press for. I'm sure there are lots of other uses that this could be put to. It amazed me when I read up on the specification of this, the amount of possible pressure that you could put on the RAM. I didn't realise it's the amount of pressure. Obviously, you've got to sort of hang on this bar to get the pressure on it, but I was amazed that it was, I think it was something like 1 3/4 tons of pressure that's possible to put on the RAM. I don't know if you can see the RAM has if I move the camera around so you can see from a sort of a side view, you can see it has some teeth machined into the side here, and in the device here there's obviously a gear wheel right inside here. It had all sorts of other bits and pieces fitted to it as well. On this top section here, just held on with a little Allen bolt, there's a thread at the back here, and this was attached to it. That was screwed into here, you see, with a little, well, you can't see now, with a little nut here so you can lock it in position. And I assume that that's used for an operation where you want to sort of run this screw down. Can't see what I'm doing, can you? Let's bring that up a bit more. That can be obviously screwed down, and there's a little sort of dowel here that can be brought down to, and I'm guessing that that's so that you can set the position that this comes down onto whatever you're doing. So this is like a sort of a stop position. There were, I mean, if anyone's watching this that knows what some of these things also do, in the top, on the top here, there are also two holes here as well, threaded, and that had these little cap head screws in there. Got no idea what they were for, but obviously there are lots of other possibilities for this as well, various other things that you could actually do with it. There was this bar was attached on the side here. Again, not really sure what that was for. I did wonder whether if you swung this top round that could go against the stop there, but I'd have no idea. That may be designed to go down this way, but having no sort of particular instructions, I suppose what I should have done at the time was check to see if RS had any instructions for this, but it was just on my part, buying this was a bit of an impulse to buy this at the time, because I thought, well, that's probably going to be very useful for something in the future, and that's why I sort of grabbed hold of it. Well, there we are. That ends my demonstration of my RS Arbour press. Well, I hope that's been of interest. Obviously, I've seen lots of videos on YouTube of people using Arbour presses basically as a press. Obviously, as I mentioned, the possibilities are wide for anything like this, and all the different things that you could possibly do with it. Paul, if you're watching this at some point, I hope that might have given you some other ideas on what the press could be used for. In some sort of fabrication role in your workshop. I'm guessing that the various accessories for it, the actual parts of it that come into contact with metal, like the shear here, and the various sort of dies that are available for all these parts, need to be hardened, but that's not, the impossible thing to do. I suppose these parts could be made out of tool steel and then hardened, that the mounts themselves, I guess, wouldn't need to be. So a lot of possibilities here, really. I mentioned that the shear part, though, I've got another one of these, but I did find cut a sort of this part, but without the blade in it. So I guess if I needed to, if I could get a piece of tool steel of the right thickness here, I could make another one of these, to make another one up. And I imagine that these could actually be made even wider if you wanted to chop much wider pieces of material with it. But again, then there are some accessories here I guess that I probably never will use, but there we are for the function I found for it so far. It's paid for itself really, and it would be lovely to have a proper shear tool and a sort of a bending tool. I mean, these do exist. There are some really wonderful ones out there on the market. There's one that I saw, I think Vivor sell it, was I think it's about a 12-inch wide shear tool, a finger brake, and a roller brake as well for producing tubes. Quite an amazing tool. And it's quite expensive, but that would be a wonderful thing to have. Really love one of those. But there we are. Well, I hope this was of interest to you. Slightly different sort of video from me this time, but at least I did do a demonstration for you as well. Anyway, thanks for watching, and thanks again to all the subscribers to the channel, and hope to have another interesting video for you very, very soon. Bye for now. Bye-bye. Hello, I was hoping you might still be with me. Since making the beginning of this video, my technical support department, is also known as my wife, managed to find on the internet the instruction leaflet for this Arbour press. Quite a number of pages here listing all the information on all the accessories that are available as well, which is sort of useful information for me, and it means now that I know what all of these additional screw holes are for in the different parts of the body of the Arbour press. Also discovered that this piece of metal here that I showed was attached here has nothing to do with it at all. I'm guessing that the original owner of this attached that to it for some reason or other. Obviously I'll never know what that was, but I thought I'd just mention this to you. I have again checked on the RS website, and the part number they give for this is exactly the same as the one on the little label on the side of the body of the press, and this doesn't appear to be listed any longer. I haven't yet got round to checking whether any of the other accessories are still available, but I mean, if it's been discontinued for a number of years, I can't imagine they would have carried on producing the accessories for this for sort of much longer really. But it's a shame really, although the likelihood of me needing various other size punches and things for it are perhaps a little bit unlikely, I guess. The two things that I think I'm going to find the greatest use for is this device for bending metal, this sort of miniature metal brake, and possibly the shear tool, which I've still got mounted in here. So those two items I guess that I'm going to find some future use for. Just to make sure that I don't put this away in the workshop where it goes unnoticed for another few years and I forget all about it. Well, anyway, I thought I'd just bring that little bit of extra information on it, and I hope that it has been of interest to you. But anyway, this really is goodbye now, and I'll see you again very, very soon.